In the heart of a realm where shadows danced with whispers, there stood a castle carved from obsidian, its spires reaching into skies perpetually streaked with crimson. The air around it pulsed with an ancient power, a force that bent reality to its will and kept the surrounding lands in perpetual twilight. Within these forbidding walls reigned Queen Seraphina, known throughout the kingdom as the rebellious sovereign, a title earned not through birthright but through her defiance against the celestial order that sought to govern all beings. Her presence was both captivating and terrifying, for she embodied the essence of fear itself. With every step she took, the ground seemed to quake beneath her, and her piercing gaze could unravel the bravest souls. Her hair cascaded like liquid night, shimmering with starlight that refused to be extinguished, while her armor, forged from the remnants of fallen constellations, glittered ominously under the dim glow of her throne room's eternal flames. She was beauty intertwined with menace, a paradox that no mortal dared approach without trembling. The people whispered tales of her wrath, how she had risen against the gods who once ruled over their world, challenging their decrees and overthrowing their dominion. It was said that when she spoke, even the winds held their breath, lest they incur her fury. Her voice carried the weight of storms, each word laced with authority so absolute it left no room for doubt or dissent. To stand before her was to feel one's very existence questioned, as though she alone possessed the power to decide whether you deserved to remain among the living. Yet despite, or perhaps because of her fearsome reputation, few dared to cross her path. Those who did often vanished without a trace, swallowed by the same darkness that cloaked her origins. Some claimed she fed on fear, drawing strength from the terror she inspired. Others believed she simply enjoyed watching mortals cower at her feet. Whatever the truth may have been, one thing remained certain. Queen Seraphina ruled not just through might, but through the sheer force of her indomitable will. And yet, within this fortress of dread, something unexpected stirred, a spark of curiosity that would soon ignite a chain of events neither queen nor subject could foresee. Amidst the swirling chaos of battlefields bathed in moonlit hues, Captain Elias Thorne emerged as a figure unlike any other. A human soldier forged in the crucible of countless wars, his name became synonymous with courage and resilience. Standing tall amidst the carnage, clad in battered steel armor that bore the scars of numerous engagements, Elias commanded respect not through fear but through unwavering determination. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, reflected a soul hardened by loss yet softened by compassion, a rare duality that set him apart from his peers. Elias led his battalion with a quiet authority, inspiring loyalty through deeds rather than words. In skirmishes where retreat seemed the only viable option, he stood firm, rallying his troops with a steady hand and an unshakable resolve. Stories of his exploits spread far beyond the borders of his homeland, tales of a man who faced insurmountable odds with nothing more than grit and ingenuity. Yet what truly distinguished Elias was not merely his skill in combat but the humanity he carried into every confrontation. He fought not out of bloodlust but out of a deep-seated belief in protecting those unable to defend themselves, a conviction born from witnessing the horrors war inflicted upon innocents. It was during one such campaign, a desperate defense of a besieged village nestled in the shadow of towering mountains, that Elias first caught the attention of Queen Seraphina's scouts. As enemy forces closed in, overwhelming in number and ferocity, many soldiers faltered, their spirits crushed by the inevitability of defeat. But not Elias. With a rallying cry that echoed across the battlefield, he charged forward, sword gleaming under the pale light, cutting down foes with precision and purpose. His movements were fluid, almost poetic, as if guided by some unseen force. Each strike carried the weight of justice, each parry a testament to his unyielding spirit. What struck observers most profoundly was not just Elias's prowess in battle but the aura of calm confidence that surrounded him. While others trembled at the sight of encroaching doom, Elias remained steadfast, his expression serene despite the chaos erupting around him. It was as though fear itself recoiled from his presence, unwilling to taint his resolve. This peculiar phenomenon intrigued Seraphina's emissaries, who watched from afar, hidden within the folds of darkness. They reported back to their queen, describing a warrior whose bravery transcended mere physical valor. It was a defiance of fate itself, a refusal to succumb to despair even when all hope appeared lost. Thus, news of Captain Elias Thorne reached the ears of Queen Seraphina, stirring something within her that had long lain dormant. For centuries, she had thrived on the fear she instilled in others, reveling in their quivering submission. Yet here was a man who seemed impervious to such emotions, whose courage burned brighter than the flames that illuminated her throne room. Intrigued and unsettled by this anomaly, Serafina found herself drawn to the notion of confronting this enigmatic soldier. Little did she know that this encounter would challenge everything she believed about power, fear, and the fragile threads that bound mortals together. The summons arrived under cover of darkness, delivered by spectral messengers who materialized in the midst of Elias's encampment like wraiths stepping out of nightmares. Their voices, hollow and resonant, carried the unmistakable weight of command, demanding the captain's presence before Queen Serafina. Though his men exchanged uneasy glances, Elias accepted without hesitation, his expression unreadable as he strapped on his sword and donned his cloak. There was no trace of apprehension in his movements, only a quiet certainty that bordered on defiance. When Elias entered the throne room of the obsidian castle, the atmosphere shifted palpably. Shadows writhed along the walls, coiling around him like serpents eager to strike, yet he walked forward with measured steps, his boots echoing against the cold stone floor. At the far end of the chamber, seated upon a throne that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy, sat Queen Serafina. Her presence was overwhelming, a storm given form, and the air crackled with latent power as her gaze locked onto him. Around her, courtiers and guards stood frozen, their faces masks of awe and dread. Yet Elias did not falter. He stopped a respectful distance from the dais, bowed briefly, not deeply enough to suggest servility, and met her eyes with a calmness that bordered on insolence. "Why aren't you trembling, human?" Serafina's voice cut through the silence like a blade, sharp and commanding. "Do you not know who I am? Do you not fear me?" Elias straightened, his posture relaxed yet poised, as if he were addressing an equal rather than a sovereign whose very name inspired terror. "Fear is a choice," he replied, his tone steady and devoid of arrogance. "And I choose to face you as I would any adversary, with respect, but without surrender." For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Serafina leaned forward slightly, her starlit hair cascading over her shoulders, her expression unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, a flicker of amusement crossed her features, though it was tinged with something darker. Curiosity, perhaps, or irritation. She rose from her throne, her movements graceful yet predatory, and descended the steps until she stood mere paces away from him. The proximity should have been suffocating, but Elias did not flinch. Instead, he regarded her with the same composed demeanor, as though her legendary wrath held no dominion over him. "You intrigue me, mortal," she said softly, her voice carrying an edge that made the hairs on the necks of those watching rise. "You stand here unafraid, as though my power means nothing to you. Tell me, what drives such audacity?" Elias hesitated only briefly before answering. "I've faced death many times, Your Majesty. Fear serves no purpose when survival depends on action, not paralysis. If your intention is to destroy me, then so be it. But if you seek to break me with intimidation, you'll find I'm not so easily undone." A murmur rippled through the assembled crowd, quickly silenced by a glance from Serafina. She studied him intently, her piercing gaze searching for cracks in his composure, but finding none. What she saw instead was something unfamiliar, a resolve that did not stem from recklessness or ignorance, but from a profound understanding of mortality itself. It unnerved her, this quiet defiance, this refusal to bow even in the face of overwhelming odds. For the first time in centuries, she felt a flicker of uncertainty, an emotion she had long since buried beneath layers of invincibility. "And what of bravery, Captain Thorne?" she asked, her tone softer now, almost contemplative. "Is it truly fearless, or merely another guise for fear?" Elias tilted his head slightly, considering her words. "Bravery isn't the absence of fear, Your Majesty. It's the decision to act despite it. Perhaps that's why I'm here, to remind you that even the smallest spark can withstand the darkest storm." The room fell silent once more, the tension thick enough to slice with a blade. Serafina regarded him for a long moment, her expression unreadable, before turning abruptly and ascending back to her throne. "Leave us," she commanded, dismissing her court with a wave of her hand. When the doors closed behind the last retainer, leaving only the two of them in the cavernous chamber, she fixed Elias with a look that was equal parts fascination and challenge. "You speak boldly, human," she said, her voice low and deliberate. "But words are cheap. Actions define us. Prove to me that your courage is more than mere rhetoric. Elias met her challenge with a nod, his stance unwavering. Then give me the chance, your majesty. Let me show you what it means to fight not out of fear, but out of conviction. As the echoes of their exchange faded into the oppressive stillness of the throne room, a strange connection began to form between the queen and the soldier. Seraphina, accustomed to wielding fear as both weapon and shield, found herself disarmed by Elias's steadfast demeanor. His lack of trepidation was not born of ignorance or arrogance, but stemmed from a deep-rooted belief in the righteousness of his cause, a concept alien yet intriguing to someone who had long thrived on the manipulation of terror. Each word he spoke resonated with sincerity, challenging her perceptions and stirring dormant emotions she had long suppressed. Elias, for his part, saw beyond the formidable exterior of the queen. Beneath her imposing presence and chilling reputation, he glimpsed a being burdened by isolation and the weight of immense power. Her questions, probing and insightful, revealed a mind that sought understanding rather than mere domination. This realization softened his initial wariness, allowing empathy to seep through his defenses. He recognized in her a reflection of his own battles, not against external enemies, but internal demons that sought to dictate one's actions through fear. Their interactions, fraught with tension yet underscored by mutual respect, gradually transformed the dynamic between ruler and subject into something more complex. Seraphina found herself drawn to Elias's principles, which championed protection and justice over conquest and control. These ideals, so foreign to her reign of enforced submission, sparked a yearning within her for a different kind of power, one rooted in inspiration rather than intimidation. Meanwhile, Elias began to see the vulnerability masked by Seraphina's regal facade, understanding that her cruelty was perhaps a shield guarding a heart weary from endless conflict. This evolving relationship subtly altered the fabric of their interactions. Conversations that once bristled with hostility mellowed into exchanges marked by genuine curiosity and cautious trust. They sparred verbally, testing boundaries and beliefs, each learning from the other in ways neither had anticipated. Seraphina started to question the foundations of her rule, pondering whether fear truly united or merely enslaved. Elias, in turn, confronted his preconceived notions about tyrants, realizing that leadership, even flawed, often arose from necessity rather than malice. The emotional undertones of their encounters deepened, colored by shared moments of introspection and revelation. Laughter occasionally punctuated their discussions, a sound unfamiliar yet welcome in the grim halls of the obsidian castle. It was during these lighter moments that barriers lowered further, allowing glimpses of humanity and divinity to intertwine. Seraphina's laughter, rare and melodic, hinted at a past filled with joy before shadows claimed her soul. Elias's smiles, warm and reassuring, spoke of a future he hoped to shape, free from the shackles of despair. Through this intricate dance of dominance and deference, fear and fortitude, the queen and the soldier forged a bond that defied conventional roles. Their connection, burgeoning and fragile, promised potential for change, not just within themselves but possibly within the realm they both influenced. As days turned into weeks, the once clear lines of adversary and ally blurred, setting the stage for transformations neither had foreseen nor fully understood. Yet, amidst this shifting landscape of allegiance and affection, the seeds of revolution quietly took root, nurtured by the unlikely alliance between a rebellious queen and a courageous human soldier. Within the shadowed corridors of the obsidian castle, whispers began to weave through the air, carried by servants and courtiers alike. The unusual rapport between Queen Seraphina and Captain Elias Thorne did not go unnoticed, sparking a mixture of awe and unease among the denizens of the realm. Servants, who once scurried about with heads bowed and hearts pounding in dread, now paused in their duties, exchanging furtive glances and hushed speculations. Could it be true, they wondered, that the indomitable queen, whose very name was synonymous with terror, was being swayed by a mere mortal? Courtiers, ever vigilant to shifts in power dynamics, observed the subtle changes with keen interest. Where once the throne room exuded an aura of unrelenting menace, there now lingered an undercurrent of something softer, almost hopeful. The queen's decrees, once issued with unyielding severity, began to reflect a newfound consideration for the plight of her subjects. Rumors spread of her engaging in discussions with Elias, not as ruler to subordinate, but as equals exploring possibilities of governance that prioritized justice over fear. This shift sent ripples through the court, unsettling those who had built their influence on the bedrock of intimidation. Among the populace, reactions varied widely. Some viewed the emerging alliance with skepticism, fearing it might be a ploy to tighten the Queen's grip on power. Others, however, dared to hope that this partnership heralded a new era, one where the heavy chains of oppression might be loosened. In villages and towns, stories of Captain Thorne's bravery mingled with tales of the Queen's gradual transformation, painting a narrative of redemption and renewal. The image of a fearless human standing toe-to-toe with the embodiment of dread inspired many, igniting a spark of rebellion against the pervasive culture of fear. Yet, not all welcomed this change. Factions within the court, entrenched in their positions of power, saw the evolving relationship as a threat to their status quo. Whispers of dissent grew louder, culminating in clandestine meetings where plots were hatched to undermine the burgeoning alliance. These conspirators, blinded by their attachment to the old ways, failed to see the broader implications of their actions. Their resistance, though covert, added layers of complexity to the already intricate tapestry of emotions and politics enveloping the castle. Meanwhile, the Queen and the soldier continued their dialogues, each session peeling back layers of misunderstanding and mistrust. Seraphina, encouraged by Elias's unwavering belief in the possibility of change, ventured beyond the confines of her throne room, observing the lives of those she ruled with a critical eye. She witnessed firsthand the suffering her reign had wrought, the fear that had become a suffocating shroud over her people. This exposure, painful yet enlightening, fueled her resolve to alter the course of her sovereignty. Elias, too, underwent a transformation. The Queen's insights into the burdens of leadership, the sacrifices made in the name of order, offered him a perspective he had never considered. His idealism, tempered by reality, evolved into a pragmatic vision for the future, a future where rulers and ruled coexisted in harmony, bound by mutual respect rather than coercion. As these personal evolutions unfolded, the impact on the realm became increasingly evident. Decrees issued from the castle carried a tone of compassion previously absent, addressing grievances and offering solutions rather than punishments. The Queen's emissaries, once harbingers of doom, now brought messages of reform and reconciliation. This seismic shift in governance began to dismantle the walls of fear that had long isolated the throne from its people. However, the path to change was fraught with challenges. Resistance from entrenched powers threatened to derail the fragile progress, and the specter of past atrocities loomed large, casting long shadows over tentative steps towards peace. Yet, amidst these trials, the bond between Seraphina and Elias stood resilient, a beacon of hope in a land shrouded in darkness. Their journey, marked by courage and conviction, continued to inspire those around them, promising a future where fear no longer dictated the rhythm of life. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the battlefield, the air thickened with anticipation. The clash between Queen Seraphina's forces and the insurgent factions opposing her reforms had reached a critical juncture. Captain Elias Thorne stood at the forefront of the Queen's army, his silhouette stark against the fiery backdrop of dusk. His sword, gleaming with the last rays of sunlight, was poised for the impending struggle, a testament to his unyielding commitment to the cause he and the Queen had championed. The insurgents, emboldened by desperation and driven by fear of losing their entrenched privileges, launched a fierce assault. Arrows darkened the sky, and the thunderous clamor of charging cavalry filled the air. Yet, amidst the chaos, Elias remained a bastion of calm, his strategic acumen guiding his troops with precision. Each directive he issued was clear and decisive, bolstering the morale of soldiers who had begun to believe in a future free from tyranny. Queen Seraphina, observing the battle from a vantage point atop a hill, felt a surge of pride mixed with anxiety. Her faith in Elias was unwavering, yet the stakes of this conflict weighed heavily on her heart. The outcome would either validate the path of reform she had embarked upon or plunge her realm back into the abyss of fear-based rule. As she watched Elias maneuver through the battlefield, his bravery a beacon amid the turmoil, she realized the depth of her reliance on him, not just as a military leader, but as a partner in reshaping the destiny of her kingdom. Elias's actions spoke louder than any decree or proclamation. With each swing of his sword, he carved out a space for hope amidst despair. His ability to inspire was unparalleled. Even wounded soldiers found renewed vigor in his presence, fighting with a fervor that stemmed from belief rather than obligation. This infectious courage began to permeate the ranks, transforming individual acts of valor into a collective surge of defiance against the insurgents. As night fell, blanketing the battlefield in a shroud of darkness pierced only by the sporadic flashes of steel and fire, the tide of the battle began to turn. The insurgents, overwhelmed by the unity and resolve of the queen's forces, started to falter. It was then that Seraphina made her move, descending from her perch to join the fray. Her entrance was met with a mix of awe and terror. Her very presence seemed to tilt the scales decisively in favor of her army. Together, she and Elias fought side by side, their combined strength and strategy routing the opposition. The victory, hard-won and bloody, marked a pivotal moment in the history of the realm. As the surviving insurgents retreated, the queen and her captain stood amidst the aftermath, surveying the cost of their triumph. Bodies littered the field, a grim reminder of the price paid for change. Yet, amidst the sorrow, there was a palpable sense of achievement, a confirmation that the path they had chosen, though fraught with peril, was the right one. Seraphina turned to Elias, her expression a complex tapestry of gratitude and resolve. "We have won this battle," she said, her voice carrying over the muted sounds of the battlefield, "but the war for the hearts and minds of our people is far from over." Elias nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. The real challenge lay ahead, in rebuilding trust and fostering a society where fear did not dictate the terms of existence. As they prepared to leave the battlefield, the queen and the soldiers shared a look that conveyed more than words ever could. It was a look of shared purpose, of acknowledgement that their journey together had only just begun. The road ahead was uncertain, paved with obstacles that would test their resolve and redefine their roles. Yet, in that moment, under the watchful eyes of a crescent moon, they stood united, not just as queen and captain, but as pioneers of a new era, ready to face whatever challenges awaited with courage and conviction. The days following the battle were a blur of activity, as Queen Seraphina and Captain Elias Thorne worked tirelessly to consolidate their victory and lay the groundwork for lasting change. The battlefield had been cleared, its scars carefully tended to by those who sought to honor the fallen. Memorials rose from the blood-soaked earth, simple stone markers inscribed with names, each one a testament to lives lost in pursuit of a brighter future. Yet even as they mourned, Seraphina and Elias pressed forward, knowing that hesitation would invite chaos back into the fragile peace they had fought so hard to secure. In the weeks that followed, the Queen issued a series of decrees aimed at dismantling the oppressive systems that had long governed her realm. Taxes once levied to fund wars and fortifications were redirected toward rebuilding villages ravaged by conflict. Courts were established where grievances could be aired without fear of retribution, overseen by impartial judges chosen not for their loyalty but for their wisdom. These changes rippled outward, touching every corner of the kingdom, yet they also ignited fierce resistance among those who stood to lose power. The factions opposing Seraphina's reforms regrouped under the banner of Lord Malric, a cunning noble whose family had thrived under the old regime. Malric saw an opportunity to exploit the cracks forming within the Queen's alliance, rallying disenchanted nobles and mercenaries to his cause. His rhetoric was sharp and divisive, painting Seraphina's reforms as weakness rather than progress. "She has grown soft," he declared in clandestine gatherings, his voice dripping with venom. "A queen who bends to the whims of mortals is no queen at all." Elias, ever vigilant, intercepted whispers of Malric's machinations during patrols through the countryside. Villagers spoke of shadowy figures moving through the night, spreading dissent and sowing seeds of unrest. Though many feared reprisal if they spoke openly, some dared to share what they knew, trusting in the captain's promise to protect them. Each report painted a clearer picture of Malric's strategy: isolate the queen from her supporters, undermine her authority, and strike when she was most vulnerable. Seraphina, too, felt the shifting winds. Her counselors grew increasingly cautious, urging her to abandon her reforms before they destabilized the realm further. "Your Majesty," one advisor pleaded, his hands trembling as he clasped a scroll detailing recent uprisings, "the people are not ready for such drastic change. You risk losing everything we have built." But Seraphina's resolve did not waver. She dismissed the advisor with a curt nod, retreating to her chambers to pore over maps and intelligence reports brought to her by Elias. Their nightly meetings became a ritual of sorts, a quiet sanctuary amid the storm brewing around them. They sat together in the dim glow of candlelight, strategizing and debating late into the night. Elias argued for preemptive action, urging Seraphina to confront Malric before he could gather enough strength to pose a real threat. "He feeds on fear," Elias said, tracing a finger along the map where Malric's forces were rumored to be amassing. "If we let him gain momentum, it will be harder to stop him." But Seraphina hesitated, torn between her desire to act decisively and her reluctance to plunge her people back into violence. "War breeds only more war," she murmured, staring at the flickering flame of a nearby candle. "I cannot undo centuries of suffering with the same tools that caused it." Their discussions often ended in stalemate, neither fully convinced by the other's perspective. Yet beneath the tension lay an unspoken understanding. They needed each other now more than ever. Elias brought clarity and pragmatism to Serafina's idealism, while she tempered his impulsiveness with measured caution. Together, they formed a partnership that transcended titles and roles, a union forged not just by necessity but by shared purpose. As tensions mounted, the emotional toll began to show. Elias bore the weight of leadership heavily, his once steady gaze occasionally clouded by doubt. He spent hours training new recruits, teaching them not only how to wield a sword but also how to think critically and act with integrity. Still, the burden of responsibility weighed on him, manifesting in sleepless nights and moments of quiet introspection. Serafina noticed these changes, though she said little. Instead, she found ways to offer support, whether by joining him in the training grounds or simply sitting beside him in silence when words failed. For her part, Serafina grappled with the isolation that came with her position. Even as she worked to bridge the gap between herself and her people, there remained an invisible barrier, a lingering mistrust born of years of fear-based rule. Some viewed her reforms as genuine, others saw them as calculated moves to maintain control. The uncertainty gnawed at her, fueling moments of self-doubt that she kept hidden behind a mask of stoicism. Only Elias witnessed these vulnerabilities, catching glimpses of the woman beneath the crown during their private conversations. One evening, as rain lashed against the castle windows, Serafina broke her usual composure. "Do you think I can do this?" she asked suddenly, her voice barely audible over the storm outside. Elias looked up from the map he had been studying, startled by the raw emotion in her tone. For a moment, he didn't respond, weighing his words carefully before speaking. "You already are," he said finally, his voice firm yet gentle. "Change doesn't happen overnight, and it won't come without sacrifice. But you've shown your people that you're willing to fight for them, not just with weapons, but with compassion. That's something worth believing in." His words struck a chord deep within her, reigniting a spark of determination that had begun to dim. She nodded slowly, her expression softening as she absorbed his reassurance. In that moment, the distance between queen and soldier seemed to vanish, replaced by a bond rooted in mutual respect and trust. Yet even as they fortified their alliance, the specter of Malric loomed larger with each passing day. Reports of skirmishes along the borders reached the castle with alarming frequency, forcing Serafina and Elias to make difficult decisions about where to allocate resources. The strain of balancing defense with reform tested their resolve, pushing both to their limits. It was clear that the coming months would demand sacrifices neither had anticipated, and that the true test of their partnership was yet to come. Underneath the looming clouds of impending confrontation, a subtle yet profound transformation continued to unfold within the heart of Queen Serafina. Her nightly dialogues with Elias, filled with strategic planning and philosophical musings, gradually peeled away layers of her hardened exterior, revealing a soul yearning for redemption and connection. Each conversation chipped away at the icy fortress she had built around herself, constructed from centuries of wielding fear as her primary tool of governance. Now, faced with Elias's unwavering belief in the possibility of change, she began to envision a different path, one illuminated not by the cold light of intimidation, but by the warm glow of hope and justice. Elias, too, underwent a metamorphosis, albeit subtler. His initial perception of Serafina as merely a formidable adversary evolved into a nuanced understanding of her complexities. He saw beyond her fearsome reputation to a ruler burdened by the immense responsibility of reshaping an entire realm. This realization fostered a deeper empathy within him, allowing him to view their partnership not just as a tactical alliance but as a profound journey of mutual growth. His courage, once fueled solely by duty and conviction, now drew strength from the burgeoning trust and respect he held for the queen. Together, they navigated the treacherous waters of political intrigue and societal upheaval, their combined strengths creating a bulwark against the rising tide of opposition. Their strategies, refined through countless debates and shared experiences, reflected a synthesis of their distinct perspectives. Serafina's regal insight and command over the arcane arts complemented Elias's grounded pragmatism and military acumen, resulting in a leadership style that balanced visionary ideals with practical execution. This fusion of attributes not only fortified their personal bond but also inspired those around them. Soldiers, once driven by fear of failure, now fought with the fervor of those who believed in a cause greater than themselves. Courtiers, witnessing the genuine camaraderie between the queen and the captain, began to shed their cynicism, embracing the possibility of a realm governed by fairness and equity. The ripple effects of their evolving relationship extended far beyond the immediate circle of influence, permeating the very fabric of the kingdom. However, the path they tread was fraught with peril. The resistance led by Lord Malric grew bolder, emboldened by whispers of dissent and disillusionment among certain factions. Skirmishes erupted with increasing frequency, testing the resilience of Seraphina and Elias's reforms. Yet, amidst these trials, their resolve only hardened. Each challenge they overcame together deepened their commitment to the vision they shared, a realm where power was exercised not through domination but through empowerment. As they prepared for the inevitable showdown with Malric, both queen and soldier understood that the battle ahead would transcend mere physical combat. It was a clash of ideologies, a struggle to define the soul of the realm. With every step forward, they carried not just the hopes of their people but also the weight of history, aware that their actions would echo through generations to come. The stakes were monumental, yet their unity remained unshaken, a beacon of steadfastness in a world teetering on the brink of transformation. The air thickened with anticipation as dawn stretched its golden fingers across the horizon, casting long shadows over the assembly gathered in the grand hall of the Obsidian Castle. Queen Seraphina stood resolute at the forefront, her presence commanding yet imbued with a newfound warmth that had begun to thaw the frost of fear enveloping her court. Beside her, Captain Elias Thorne mirrored her resolve, his armor gleaming with the promise of battles yet to be fought. Today marked a pivotal juncture, the unveiling of their comprehensive plan to dismantle the remnants of tyranny and forge a society anchored in justice and equality. With a voice that resonated through the cavernous hall, Seraphina addressed her subjects, her words weaving a tapestry of hope and determination. "We stand on the precipice of change," she proclaimed, her eyes scanning the sea of faces, each reflecting a myriad of emotions ranging from skepticism to eager anticipation. "Today, we chart a course towards a future where fear does not dictate our lives. Where every individual, regardless of birth or station, has the opportunity to thrive." Elias stepped forward, his demeanor exuding confidence and calm. He outlined the strategic initiatives designed to stabilize the realm, initiatives that included the establishment of regional councils empowered to enact local reforms, the redistribution of land seized unjustly during decades of oppression, and the creation of educational institutions aimed at enlightening the populace about their rights and responsibilities. Each proposal was met with a mixture of applause and murmurs of concern, indicative of the complex tapestry of opinions within the realm. As the assembly dispersed, discussions erupted like wildfire, igniting spirited debates in corridors and courtyards alike. The reforms, ambitious and sweeping, stirred a cauldron of reactions. Supporters lauded the vision of a fairer society, while detractors voiced fears of upheaval and loss of privilege. Amidst this maelstrom of voices, Seraphina and Elias moved among the people, engaging directly with those affected by the proposed changes. Their accessibility, unprecedented in the annals of the kingdom's history, further eroded the barriers between ruler and ruled. Yet, lurking in the shadows of progress, the specter of Lord Malric loomed ominously. His network of spies and saboteurs infiltrated the burgeoning movements of change, sowing seeds of discord and misinformation. Whispers of betrayal and deceit began to circulate, threatening to unravel the delicate fabric of unity painstakingly woven by the queen and her captain. Reports of sabotage in newly established supply lines and arson attacks on educational facilities reached Seraphina's ears, each incident a stark reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. Determined not to be swayed by the undercurrents of rebellion, Seraphina convened a council of trusted advisors, including Elias, to devise countermeasures. The room buzzed with urgency as plans were drawn up to bolster security and root out infiltrators. Yet, even as strategies were formulated, Seraphina wrestled with the ethical implications of her decisions. The use of force, albeit necessary, clashed with the principles of nonviolence and reconciliation she espoused. Elias, sensing her turmoil, offered counsel tempered with wisdom gained from years on the battlefield. "Justice must sometimes wear the armor of might," he advised, his tone measured yet firm. "But it should never forsake the shield of mercy." His words resonated deeply with Seraphina, reinforcing her resolve to navigate the treacherous waters of reform with both strength and compassion. As preparations intensified, the bond between Serafina and Elias deepened, forged in the crucible of shared adversity. Their interactions, once marked by formalities and guarded exchanges, evolved into a seamless partnership characterized by mutual trust and respect. This evolution did not go unnoticed by those around them, inspiring a sense of unity and purpose that transcended personal agendas and historical grievances. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of the realm. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the landscape, the air vibrated with the collective breath of a kingdom holding its own. Serafina and Elias, standing shoulder to shoulder, embodied the spirit of defiance against the forces of regression. The battle lines were drawn, not just on fields of combat but within the hearts and minds of every citizen. And as they prepared to face whatever storms awaited, their intertwined destinies promised a narrative of courage, conviction, and transformative change. An epic saga still unfolding, with its final chapters yet to be written.